So in this video we'll be looking at the Dignitas versus Gen.G Grand Final matchup from the Nights Before Christmas tournament. Specifically we'll be looking at the Haven matchup, looking at it from Dignitas' point of view, but still pointing out the strengths and flaws of Gen.G throughout the match. We'll be starting with the pistol, with Dignitas on defense and Gen.G on attack. And as you may or may not know, pistol round is very important, both for your economy, being able to have guns on second round and then play for a bonus on third, if everything goes normal with no force buys. And with the added kills, you're able to get your ultimates, and then maybe on third round, when you're playing for that bonus, they have really good guns, you're still on your Spectres and Stingers. Maybe you have built up enough ultimate orbs for Killjoy or Phoenix, and you're able to use that ultimate to get a slight lead in the round. You can push that advantage, and then if you win that bonus, you've really set up a good foundation to try and win the half or do really well in the half. Uh, so to start with this pistol, we'll probably start with some scouting that could have gone on between the two teams. We'll look at the previous three matches that both teams played on this map and see how uh, what they did during those rounds. So to start with, we'll be starting with Gen.G on attack versus Xset, where they do a 1-4 split, with one person going long and four coming out garage. And um, this is the most recent matchup, so maybe some scouting went into this from the previous game that Gen.G had played, but Xset, they have a nice raise nade that lands right outside garage. Maybe that was pre-planned, or maybe Raze was just in the right position at the right time. But that sets up a nice little pistol ace. And then against Prospects, Gen.G do the exact same thing, a 1-4 split, Omen going long, 4 out garage. And here, Prospects actually play full retake. They get one frag before Gen.G even gets on site, but this just goes to show the power of being able to retake, and if you have a good retake, it's really hard for the defending team to even defend the site, especially when Gen.G are quite obviously putting two people long, and um, if they're smoked out, they can't even do anything. And then their third most recent match against Time In, love my boy Ninja. They just do a nice little A exec. But as you can see, every single time, even this drone that they just did from sewers, they saw one person. I fully believe no matter what they saw, they were going to try hit this site no matter what. That's just the Gen.G playstyle. They pick a site and they try rush in. That's not hating on them. It's perfectly fine because, especially on Haven, whatever site you hit, odds are you're running into man advantage at least, or at least 3 to 4 player advantage maybe. But here, Time In do another good retake and eventually get the dub. So now just quickly analysing the defensive setup for Dignitas, we have three members towards A to get a lobby control, which either develops into a flank later on in the round, or just two members rotating off to defend either C or B. We also have the Omen and Killjoy towards C and B, with the Killjoy utility used to just get some early awareness of them either hitting B or hitting C, with the utility more towards the chokes. If we take a look at their three most recent games against NRG, Rise and Equinox, we see the exact same setup all three times. So this gives Gen.G a really good opportunity to counter-strat their opponents, because their opponents only know one setup, and it's the 3 towards A and then a weak side with Killjoy and Omen. And then every single time, if you look towards C and B on every single minimap image, I guess, you see a lot of holes and a lot of empty space towards C and B. And Gen.G takes advantage of this really well, and you'll see that during the round. So now finally getting to the pistol round. Now that we've done our due diligence, we know to expect maybe a fast execute coming out from Gen.G on one of the sites, maybe some sort of split. And then for Dignitas, we expect Old Faithful 3 to get a lobby control, and then they have a weak side with Omen and Killjoy trying to play their lives. Here we have Killjoy getting some early info, spotting one or two players, falling back, They've secured a lobby control, and now we've got two rotators coming in, but Gen.G knows how Dignitas play. They know they have a timing here. They end up doing a split through B and Garage, right here and here, and they end up just pincering the Omen and Killjoy, and this molly that they did some scanning for doesn't come to fruition because they don't do the 1-4 split. They smartly decide to mix it up, and then 3v5 retake looks a bit grim. From here on out, Gen.G has done their job right. They executed a really nice game plan and got advantages within the round, and no matter what trades happen here, it really should go in Gen.G's favour and should be a pistol win. So now to take more of a deep dive into the structure of the Dignitas setup, there's basically three key points we can talk about. We can talk about the A lobby control, we can talk about how they play around B, and then how they play around C. So to start with A, they basically have this dart which lands on this wall to scan inside cipher cages, which are commonly thrown here as like a diversion, and then maybe they'll hit C or B. And then they have the smoke here to cut off the circulation A lobby, and they can have maybe a favorable fight, or they can basically just play for A lobby control. If the enemy team plans to go for an A exec, they can always fall back and play 3 on site, and you'll take a 3v5 exec on Haven any day of the week, especially with how spread out this map is with having 3 sites. It's really hard to ever have a situation where you have 3 people ready to defend. If in the case they get A lobby control, they have Jet stay here and hold it, and then they'll have Phoenix and Sova rotate towards B. If the enemy goes for a B plant, a common plant is planting here and then maybe playing for A link and post planting in there. Phoenix and Sova should be able to fight their way through A link, at least hold their own. Usually the point of this plant is you run over the top of the singular person holding B, playing right here. Oh, bad arrow. They just watch it from A link, and if you end up rushing them, you get the free frag, you get to post plant in here, and it's a pretty strong play if you get in the right circumstances. But regardless, maybe they just plant for B and they'll play post plant out in mid or on site. You have a really nice pincer coming from C with Omen and Killjoy, and you've also got the Phoenix Sova wrapping around, and then maybe the Jet flank develops and you end up getting pincer from mid. B is basically very easy to retake on this map, just as easy as it is to plant for the enemy team. And then, so obviously we noted that the Omen and Killjoy are playing on the weak side of the map because we're playing for heavy A control. For C, we basically full give it up, we're playing entirely retake, and in this case they have Killjoy utility watching for presence at the choke points of B and C, just to see if they are pushing on. And here we have the Killjoy molly as sort of a counter strat to Gen.G, but as we know it didn't end up happening. Now to maybe point out some suggestions and maybe make this more general, how this could have been played a little bit better. So I really like that Killjoy peeks out garage doors a lot and scouts for some information. What we also could have done was have Omen on top of B site, and on pistol it's, especially if you buy armor, it's a lot less likely that you're going to die peeking for information, because you obviously don't die to one headshot unless they're by a sheriff. But if we play for info outside mid doors and outside on top of B site, against Gen.G they would have seen players here and players here, and they would have gotten a really good idea on how they were playing, because I'm pretty sure Killjoy saw 2 players and this Omen would have easily seen 2 or 3 people, would have made getting A lobby a lot easier. They would have been able to rotate off a lot quicker, and they would have seen this pincer possibly coming. Another thing that I think Dignitas could have done a bit better was, instead of trying to purely counter strat this connector push, You end up placing the molly to deny a really strong plant for C long. So if you place that molly, they have to wait, 4.5 seconds for the molly to go away. They're probably just going to end up planting super safe in here, and that means that this Omen and Cypher that usually play C long can no longer see the bomb, and they'll have to end up playing on site. You also delay like 5 to 6 seconds for your teammates to come by, and with those 5 to 6 seconds, you're all in position. You're ready to execute off the bomb being planted. You can have Omen blinding through the middle of site, maybe Phoenix coming out CT with a flash. You're basically just hitting the site, and you're all there in time. You give time for this Jet to develop her flank. And one thing that I failed to mention was that by playing retake, you intrinsically have a utility advantage. So because Gen.G isn't doing that due diligence of scouting and taking the round slow and trying to burn some utility from the enemy, they're just full committing on a site and executing. They should be burning, Sova Dart, Omen Blind, all this like relevant utility that's really strong and impactful during the round. And because we're playing for retake, um, we're able to have 5 members alive and have all our utility available, because the only utility we're really burning for a lobby control is rechargeable utility like Sova Dart and Omen Smoke. So when it comes to retaking C, we haven't burned this Omen Flash because we know we're playing retake C. We have these Phoenix Flashes, this Omen Flash, we're ready to flash site, and we have this utility advantage, and if we're buying time properly, we also have a really nice timing to attack them when they're not ready. We're also setting up a very favorable retake for ourselves. Because we're denying this really strong plant for C long, we're able to smoke this off when we want to execute on this site for the retake. We're forcing them to play angles where they're open to our flashes. So we'll be flashing out here, and we'll be flashing through default, and there's very limited spots that they can stand. So we can always have a dart back site. We could have maybe, a lineup for a Phoenix molly that lands back plat, or just utility like this that we force them into scenarios where we know exactly where they're playing, and it sets up a really favorable scenario for ourselves. Now, as for maybe uh, a different setup that Dignitas could have done, I definitely think they should have tried to mix things up. Doing the same setup like 4 times in a row is not the way to go. You just give the enemy team, you make it too easy on them to counter strat you, right? So potentially another setup that Dignitas could have done is heavy mid control, with just Omen and Sova playing C and Garage respectively, and then we've got the Killjoy utility on A playing retake, and with the Molly to delay some time. So these 3 people mid, um, at least against Gen.G, this would have worked really well, because against most attacks, at most you're going to have 3 people swinging out mid window. Never 5, never 4 really. Unless it's just a full B execute, in which case you can just fall back. I mean, they probably won't exec into 3 people, that'd be ridiculous, but with these 3 people mid, you have a really strong advantage. You have these altering heights. You can very easily win maybe a 3v5 trade in mid. Let's say, for instance, they end up executing A. You still have these 3 people mid, and they can all push down, and you're in time for a really big flank, and it comes really soon, because these 3 people can walk down or something. You can check outside garage, bottom grass. You can always have a dart coming out from Sova, maybe to check bottom grass if you want to do the walk down straight away. And with this Killjoy molly, maybe they'll plant over here, which is becoming more of a prevalent plant. But you're basically just delaying time for another retake, and Omen will come by. He'll have his flash up regardless. He'll be able to flash through side or maybe flash through hell, and you can basically just, in your customs, in your practice time, have a really strong A retake for this pistol, and you should win most rounds. Looking at other sides of the map, we have this Omen who can play on top of the site. looking for a C-long execute. Maybe you can see 3 to 4 people C-long and then you make the call. This Omen can always play to hold the site, so playing Sova in Garage, he has some really nice darts, like for instance if they smoke his window, he can always dart top of Garage and get a few kills through the smoke. He can always wrap around to CT. If they are pushing onto C, we can have Omen flash down this long funnel and then Sova dart up on the wall, and you can try to hold the site there. You have these 3 members mid who have really easy rotates to get over towards C, even get in some flank positions here. And the point of this setup is not to completely counter Gen.G's attack and only their attack. A setup like this can work against most attacks. The point of everything I'm going to suggest in this video is not to purely counter what Gen.G does or what Dignitas does. It's to give you an idea on what I think about and how many situations we can account for. So an alternate structure that still keeps the same setup that Dignitas is going for is potentially something like this, where you still have this Sova dart and this smoke coming in, but it acts as a facade in some ways, because you're not actually trying to get this A lobby control, but if the enemy team do decide to maybe cage this cross and you're smoking right here, if they never enter A lobby, they're never going to see this Phoenix here and they're never going to see Jet here. So they're not actually sure what you're doing, but purely just by looking at the minimap, they can see this Sova dart and they're going to guess that you're getting this A lobby control, because that's the false intel you've given them from your previous 3 matches. Instead, you have maybe some members towards mid, and you have your crosshairs trained towards mid, because ultimately you don't want the enemy to be able to get free information. If you can force your enemy to have to flash out here, flash out here, flash out here every single time, because they're at risk of running into an operator or running into 3 members, then by the time they hit site, maybe they already have wasted half their utility, and it makes holding site a whole lot easier. I think in this game right now, fortune is starting to favor the bold, and if you're able to burn the enemy's utility purely because they're playing scared, then I think over time that's just going to create a small fortune for you. As for Killjoy, maybe Killjoy could be using 2 of her mollies to delay the plant and buy time for rotates, maybe buy time for the Sova arrow, because if we use it here and by the time that the enemy reaches the site, maybe Sova could be here and have his dart up and ready to do some lineup, and we could be aiming to flood the site. So maybe we have Omen here, flashing here, once again Phoenix flashing out CT. You know, whatever you want to do to have a retake for C, you can do it, because you're using 2 mollies to just delay the plant. Maybe you want to play for tricks and you want to instead use maybe an alarm bot. You could do some sort of trick in here where you have Omen ready to flash off this alarm bot. I'm not really sure, but definitely playing for tricks is a viable way to play. It can be strong if you're able to get a kill and then back off. Regardless, I personally am starting to favor more towards just delaying the plants, because you can reliably retake a site rather than just placing this alarm bot, because in this current situation where we're looking at, there really aren't any holes. If they end up going A, if they want to break through all this, they think they're running into 3 members, we can still fall back and do a simple A retake. Maybe we, instead of using 2 Killjoy Molotovs here, we just use 1 over here as well to just delay the plant further and wait for all the cavalry to get over. Regardless, I think this sort of setup would also work, especially since you've trained them to think that we're getting a lobby control almost every single time. And if they peek mid, realistically, at the pro level, at least 1 person should be able to hit a headshot, 1 person should be able to hit a body shot, and at that point you've got an advantage. You can disperse. Even in other cases you can just play off site, and bait them into attacking B. So before we get to the second round pistol between Dignitas and Gen.G, first we should go back through the archives and try to get an idea as to how the round will unfold. Here we have N.G versus Dignitas, with N.G having 3 people A long for A lobby control, and with a 2-man weak side, very similar to how Dignitas plays. And here we have Jet being a Chad and peeking C long, which is exactly what you want to do. And then we have this dart, and also a shock lands in here with also a Phoenix Flash, which gains garage control. And as you can see how N.G is playing this out, they aren't peeking at all. They're not being chads, they're not able to get any extra information other than what their utility is giving them. And here they have a camera that's almost useless. They had a trip here, but it got broken by a shock dart, and they have a trip here. Besides that, they have no other additional information. What also happened on the other side of the map was the Sova dart landed, and I believe this was an indicator for Dignitas to put more pressure towards C and B, because they understand that a Sova dart could be informative of maybe an A lobby control with 3 members, which it certainly was in this case. So here with the garage control that they pseudo got, so they didn't necessarily go inside garage, but they always had that threat. And because Dignitas is just playing inside C-Link, very passive, they don't know what's happening inside garage, they're having to play very scared, and it gives Dignitas so much breathing space. This is why you want to be a Chad and be able to get information, because these teams that are pushing the boundaries and trying to get a little bit more information, it's making the game so much easier for them to play. So here we just have Dignitas doing a simple B execute now with all the space they've already obtained. There is 2 men on the flank for NRG, but they're soon going to be wiped out by the guy holding the flank. And it turned out to be a pretty easy B execute because of all these micro advantages that added up into a really big advantage. So here we have Dignitas versus Rise, and this is another really instructive round by Dignitas because it shows off their ability to scout and their map and game awareness. So we start off with Rise having a very passive B hold and not necessarily peeking to gain any information at all. And we have this Cypher doing this cam in garage, which because Dignitas has this mid pressure, they're able to do their normal dart and flash into garage to break this camera. And now we've denied this control from Rise. They have absolutely no idea what's happening in garage. They have absolutely no idea what's happening in mid. So this can serve as a really good fake towards A. And one important note to make that's happened towards A is that there was no Sova dart by Rise. So that's indicative that they're not trying to get this A lobby control with 3 members. So what they end up doing is having this lurker towards mid, and then they just contact play up towards A. Even though this Phoenix guy is lurking towards mid, because they did this really great fake towards garage, they were able to have a lot of free time and get really strong post plants, which enabled them to win the round. So here we have Dignitas versus Equinox, and this round makes obvious how information and vision, or lack thereof, plays a huge role in Valorant on a round-to-round basis. So we start off with Dignitas having their normal mid-pressure, and they do a smoke towards top C, which denies vision from anyone playing on C, especially this camera, it can't see behind the smoke. And it's also indicative of a potential C pop, so it serves as sort of a fake. Also, on the other side of the map, we have this Sova dart for A lobby, and because no one on Dignitas is breaking this dart, Equinox is able to get 2 really quick rotates off, which is not in Dignitas' favor, of course. They still have a nice timing where they're able to attack on B, even though they're running into the 2 other members which are playing weak side, they still end up coming out even, but you see here, Sova and Phoenix are already here in time. If they ended up breaking this dart a lot earlier, they could have had to stay around to try and obtain this control, and this B take could have been a lot easier. Here brings up a good difference between Gen.G and Dignitas in the sense that Gen.G is very confrontational and they like to send multiple members at a site so they can trade off each other, But here we have two Dignitas members which are very far apart from each other, and if this Sova looks the correct way, he gets this kill and it turns into a 50-50 round because it's a 1v1. And ultimately he could even have the advantage because he has the bomb down. This is why it's important to find the right balance between lurking and playing with your team members to trade off them. You obviously want to lurk because having the enemy have to be afraid of a potential lurk can be really strong and beneficial for you, but if you rely on the lurk too much and you're not able to trade off your team members, it's obviously a lot safer just to send 5 people at one person and hopefully one of those 5 people hits the shot and you end up getting that kill for free or 1-for-1. However, in this case, the luck does work out for Dignitas and they are able to get the kill and win the round. Here we have the past 3 matchups for Gen.G when they played defensive side on Haven against Exit Prospects and Time In once again. And looking at these minimaps at a glance, it's hard to find any common relationships or any common weaknesses between them. Against Exit, they do 3 members towards mid with retake utility on A and then 1-1 in C and garage. And then again against Prospects, 1-1 in C and garage with some sort of cheese towards sewers where they do a flash and then have 2 members ready to capitalize. And then against Timon, they have these 3 members towards mid, Cypher camp for C, 1 in garage, and then this Sova getting information on A long. As you can see, all of these strategies are different and unique. Maybe one could say that they have a weak garage and C long on each of these minimaps, but against Xset and Timon, they have 3 members towards mid, which allows them to rotate to C very quickly, and then maybe when you go to plant the bomb, they omen flash the site and they use all their other utility in combination, and you're not able to defend, you don't even have the bomb down. It puts them in a really advantageous spot to win the round. So Gen.G does a really good job at not making it impossible to beat them. You can still beat them, but not able to bring in any obvious advantages into the round before it even starts. So now time for Dignitas versus Gen.G. Gen.G opts to go for a setup they used against Prospects where they have this Omen Flash towards sewers, and then they have this normal Cypher and Sova towards C/garage. And Dignitas, in this round, they chose to do some research of themselves, and they realized that they like to get a lot of mid control, so they're going to keep a few things the same that they used to do with that mid control, but they're going to try and finish towards A. So here we start the round. We're going to have an Omen Smoke towards top of C long, and then this Tripwire just got shock darted, and then here, unfortunately, maybe, Gen.G wasn't communicating, or maybe they're just not falling for the bait, but they're still sticking to this cheese towards short. But now we're all rotating towards A, getting ready to do this execute. And this is the power of contacting and staying grouped as a team. Even though 4 members got Omen flashed, because they had 4 members here, and Omen got 1 kill, they end up trading 2-for-1, and they had a Sova dart that was going to come in if they were going to execute A. But now that they got those 2 picks, their plans are changing, but that just goes to show you the power of playing with your teammates. Even this cheese that blinded 4 opponents wasn't able to come out in a meaningful trade. So now they're just going to make the call to head towards C. Killjoy's going to stay on the lurk and try and kill any flankers. And even though this round got really messy towards sewers, because Dignitas was able to stay grouped and this is a pistol round, they don't have Phantoms and Vandals to spray down multiple opponents, they ended up getting an advantageous trade. Now they're going to kill the lurker and ultimately win the round because they got these advantages. I appreciate anyone making it this far into the video. I know it was a long one and I might have rambled a bit here and there, but hopefully everything I said was concise and objective. I don't blame you if you haven't heard of me, since OCE hasn't necessarily been in the limelight for a minute now, but I've been coaching Valorant for a few months under Mindfreak, competing since the beta and studying the game of Valorant since its inception. With this sort of nail in the coffin per se for OCE Valorant, I'm definitely looking for any opportunities overseas which could allow me to prove myself and have a real impact on a team for which I know I can. Any comments and criticism is greatly appreciated and maybe if this gets enough traction, I could do something similar with full buy rounds, or maybe just some more overall analysis on particular games in general. I've definitely watched enough Valorant from every region to call myself a student of the game, but these videos definitely push me to go further, so it could be something I do on a more frequent basis. So feel free to show your opinion by liking or disliking and giving me your opinion in the comments. My Twitter is on screen and in the description. Much love. So feel free to show your opinion by liking or disliking and giving me your opinion in the comments. My Twitter is on screen and in the description. Much love.